So now we're going to be looking at using something called a virtual environment. Now, virtual environments are actually really useful, and it's something which is maybe considered a more advanced technique, but I think it would be really useful for all of you to be able to understand how they work and also just use them to make your projects flow better and also be easier to manage. So essentially, what a virtual environment is a mini computer within your files. So to make that a little bit more concrete, think about it like this. When I type in Python onto my computer, this is running a Python which is inside of my computer somewhere. So if I do which Python, this is something in my file system. And so no matter where in my computer I am, I do Python. But as a result of that, if I type in Python and let's say I do import math, now the location of the math module is inside of the place where all of my modules are for the entire computer. Now, there's many reasons why this could be problematic. Let's say that in one project I'm doing, I use math module version. So let's see if I can get the version. No version, but let's try math.version. Yep, okay, never mind. But let's say that in one project, I'm using the 2.0 version of the math module, and then later on, like a year later, I install the new version of math because they have a new feature which I need for a new project. Now, my old project was still using the older version of math. However, because Python is global and all my modules are global to my computer, it'll mess up the old project, which is using math 2.0, because now my entire computer has math 3.0. So what a virtual environment does is it allows us to actually install all of our dependencies, all of our modules, inside a little, think about it like a little hub for that project specifically. And more concretely, it'll basically be putting all of that stuff inside of a folder. So instead of having all of your modules install globally, they'll install to the virtual environment. And that way, every project has its own virtual environment. And so they all keep track of their own dependencies, their own versions, and everything stays completely clean. So the way that you set this up is you first need to install the virtual environment. And so the way that you do that is you go to the internet and you do install virtual environment Python. You go to the first link, it says installations, and look at that. Pip, which is what we just learned how to use, pip install virtual env, and put sudo in front. So I'm going to go to my terminal, let's clear this. Sudo pip install virtual env. Type in my password, and it installed it. So it actually was already installed on my computer because I use it a lot, but it should have done the installation for it. So now what happens is, okay, let's use it. So I'm going to start up a new terminal. Let me close this, make it a little bigger. So now let's do, create one. So I put most of my virtual environments inside the GitHub folder. We'll be talking about how to use the GitHub folder later. But in order to create a virtual environment, it's going to create a folder with what you call it. So you just type in virtual env, which is the command, and then the name of the environment you want to create. And so this is just normally the name of the project. So I'm going to say demo virtual environment. Now it says it's installing Python, it's doing pip, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so now notice how it created a new folder, the demo virtual environment. So I'm going to cd into that. And now it created this bin, an include, and lib. Now, currently we're still actually, even though we are in the folder for the virtual environment, it's not yet using the virtual environment. The way that you make it use the virtual environment is you have to activate it. So what you need to do is go into the folder. So now notice how I'm inside my demo environment. And then I need to do source bin/activate. So I tab that to completion, but it's a file called activate inside the bin folder. And I do source on that. And now notice how it has this nice parentheses thing and says, I am in the demo environment for virtual environment. So now let's say I do which Python. Notice how it says the Python is coming from the virtual environment. If I just have a new thing and I do which Python, which is not in the virtual environment, it would be taking it from here. So now if I do Python import math and I do math.file, then notice how it's getting it from the libraries inside the demo virtual environment. Also, pip, which is here, is actually also, if I do which pip, inside the virtual environment. So let's say I do pip install beautiful soup. I'm gonna sudo, whoops, I'm really good at using this Mac. So sudo pip install, now it actually installed it, and if I do Python import bs4, or maybe it's like bs3, bs2, okay, never mind. I don't know like what it's called, but whatever I installed, it would be inside this virtual environment. If I did ls libs python 2.7, then inside of here, there's beautiful soup somewhere. So awesome. If I ever want to unactivate the virtual environment, I just type in deactivate, and it'll close it, and now I'm back to my regular Python. Cool. So this was a quick introduction to virtual environments. Remember, if you want any of your code to actually use the virtual environment, you have to put it inside the folder. So for instance, let's reactivate it, source bin/activate. And now I'm going to make a Python file. Damn it, Sublime, I do not want to purchase you. I'm going to go to GitHub, demo environment, and inside of here I'm going to say testing.py. And I'm going to do print 3 plus 4. So now if I do python testing.py, it'll run it inside the virtual environment with all the dependencies that are there. So this was just a quick introduction, as I was saying, to virtual environments. They are super useful, and when we develop our Django app, we're going to be using them to actually keep all the dependencies there, and it'll be really useful when we deploy to Heroku.